subcommittee will come to order. The chair now recognizes our first witness, the Honorable Inspector General of the Department of Transportation. At this time, you're recognized, General Scovel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, I'd like to take about 10 minutes for my oral statement.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Petri, and members of the subcommittee, we appreciate the opportunity to testify today regarding FAA's certification of the Eclipse EA-500 very light jet. Over the past several years, multiple manufacturers have designed a new class of aircraft called very light jets, or VLJs. VLJs are small aircraft with advanced technologies that cost less than other business jets but operate at similar speed and altitude. In 2006, FAA certified the first VLJs, one of which was the Eclipse EA-500, a six-seat jet aircraft which featured advanced avionics and better fuel efficiency. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a moment and establish from the outset what this case is about and what it isn't about. First, it isn't about an unsafe aircraft that must be grounded immediately. This case isn't about a certification process that is riddled with flaws and must be revamped from A to Z. My office has not examined the certification process at large. This case isn't about the long-standing practice of FAA to recognize alternative means of compliance and equivalent levels of safety, a practice that is generally sound and makes sense. And this case isn't about an FAA field office run amok. While their bedside manner in dealing with the manufacturer could have been better, local FAA officials acquitted themselves well and honorably in making difficult technical and safety-related decisions. What this case is about is a strikingly accommodative approach to an effort by a new, untested manufacturer using new technology and a new business model to put a high-speed, high-altitude jet in the hands of relatively inexperienced private pilots. This case is also about an intensely calendar-driven, not event-driven, effort to certify an aircraft by a date that was selected a year before. It is also about a certification process that has a long history of success involving FAA and the industry, but which, in this case, was removed from local officials and controlled, indeed driven, by officials in FAA headquarters. And finally, this case does raise questions about whether FAA focused exclusively on safety as its highest priority, as mandated by law. Let me now turn to the specifics of our investigation. In March 2007, we received FAA inspector complaints that the Eclipse jet was pushed through the certification process too quickly. A significant issue overshadowing FAA's certification of the EA-500 is that with the inherent risks associated with a new aircraft, utilizing new technology produced by a new manufacturer and marketed with a new business model, FAA should reasonably have been expected to exercise heightened scrutiny in certifying this aircraft. In addition, because the EA-500 has advanced avionics and turbine engine technology typical of large transport aircraft, but also is light in weight like smaller private aircraft, it did not fit easily into FAA's existing certification framework. FAA chose to certify the EA-500 and other VLJs using certification requirements for general aviation aircraft, rather than the more rigorous certification requirements for larger transport aircraft. However, in a post-design certification lessons learned internal review of the Eclipse project, included in our handout, FAA managers acknowledged at page 8 that the general aviation certification requirements were, quote, inadequate to address the advanced concepts introduced on this aircraft, end quote. In certifying the EA-500, FAA asserts that it met all pertinent certification regulations. However, the results of our investigation to date show a combination of actions and inactions on the part of FAA, indicating that it expedited the certification processes for the Eclipse EA-500. First, during the design certification of the EA-500, Eclipse applied for and FAA approved alternative means of compliance for the aircraft's avionics software and airspeed and altitude indicators. While FAA guidance concerning this process allows for deviation from normal accepted practices, we are concerned about the level of review that FAA conducted in certifying the software. For example, FAA did not require this software to be approved to the accepted industry standard before certification. Instead, FAA accepted an IOU from Eclipse, which stated that the aircraft would meet the accepted industry standard at a later date. However, when FAA issued the design certificate, Eclipse's software supplier had only completed 23 of the 65 required tests. The supplier subsequently completed all 65 tests by June 2007. However, EA-500 users continued to report problems with cockpit instrumentation as recently as May 2008. A June 5, 2008 incident involving the EA-500 heightened attention regarding the aircraft's design certification. The incident involved an EA-500 on approach to Chicago Midway Airport when it experienced throttle failure. After consulting the emergency procedures, the pilot shut down one of the engines. However, this action caused the second engine to roll back to idle power and be unresponsive to the throttle. The two pilots declared an emergency and were able to land the plane without injury to themselves or their two passengers. During its investigation into the incident, NTSB expressed concern about the reliability of an assembly that failed after accumulating only 238 hours and 192 cycles. NTSB also raised concerns that the problem could be due to flaws in the design logic for the software that controls the engines. As a result of this incident, FAA engineers re-examined the software that controls the engines and discovered software logic flaws that should have been resolved before certifying the design. At the end of June 2008, the local FAA certification manager sent a memorandum to the manufacturer requiring Eclipse to develop an approach to bring the aircraft design into certification compliance for that system. Eclipse is currently addressing FAA's requirement. Second, FAA awarded Eclipse a production certificate even though the agency knew of deficiencies in the company's supplier and quality control systems. To receive a production certificate, manufacturers are required to undergo FAA quality control reviews and an FAA production certification board review to determine if they have complied with all regulations. FAA's quality control reviews, which began in July 2006, identified numerous deficiencies, with 42 serious deficiencies identified as late as February 2007. The Production Certification Board completed its review on April 26, 2007, the same day the production certificate was granted, and identified two serious overarching deficiencies relating to Eclipse's supplier and quality control systems. Despite the impact these issues could have on the production process, FAA awarded the production certification to Eclipse with 13 known production problems. Further, even after granting the production certificate, FAA audits of Eclipse supplier controls found significant deficiencies. In 7 out of 7 Eclipse supplier audited, FAA investors identified serious nonconformities involving issues such as nonconforming parts, uncalibrated tools, and supplier personnel using outdated manufacturing specifications. At the largest user of the EA-500, for example, mechanics found problems with Eclipse supplier manufactured parts on 26 of the 28 EA-500 aircraft operated by that company. Finally, results of our investigation indicate that FAA's desire to promote the use of VLJs may have contributed to its decision to accelerate the Eclipse certification process. A significant concern surrounding this issue, Mr. Chairman, is that FAA specifically designated the Eclipse VLJ as a priority project for certification. In its fiscal year 2006 performance plan, FAA's Aircraft Certification Service identified Eclipse as a priority, stating flatly that it would certify an Eclipse small jet by September 2006.